Hi everybody, my name's Stuart Moore, and on this video I want to go over 5 things that you need to do before you even go to the garden center to pick out plants. So hi guys, so like I was saying, I wanted to go over 5 things that you can do before you even go to the garden center to pick out plants. Now I know this is a very exciting time and you're wanting to get out there and get your hands dirty and landscape your entire front yard. Well, without a plan, you're going to receive diminishing returns for all of your efforts. If you don't know how big your flower beds are going to be, because that's step 1, know what you're working with. There is nothing wrong with you going out and building your flower beds right now. Just build all the beds, do all the flat rock work if you want to have some little retaining walls or some sort of separator between your turf and your flower bed. You can always reclaim some of the flower bed for turf, and you can always take more turf out. So just keep that in mind when you're building your flower beds, that none of this is really permanent. So what I like to do is like to build my flower bed, and I like them to evolve organically. Building the flower beds as a first step really works out very well because you can always mulch it, sit in a lawn chair and just look at it and enjoy that creativity that having an empty flower bed inspires. Just a quick little story. I used to sit out on the front porch and smoke my pipe and just stare at my front yard, and my girlfriend walked up to me and said, "Why don't you do any of these great ideas you have?" And I said, "Well, as soon as I do these great ideas, then the fun is over." So a lot of those creative juices just start getting moving whenever you have a bed that you can just sit there and look at and just kind of go over the infinite amount of possibilities for that area. So that's step 1, know what you're working with. Now step 2 is going to be know your design aesthetic. Now I've been kind of involved in landscaping for quite some time. I skew a little bit more to the plant and science side of things more than the design side of things, but I've done plenty of that too. So in my head, knowing the design aesthetic, that comes very easily. I like English cottage garden style, which I like to refer to as the mullet of landscaping, which is business up front, party in the back. Just a well-managed boxwood hedge in the front or some sort of hedge in the front, and as I layer it back, I'm using a lot of the same varieties. Maybe there's only 5 different varieties of plants in some of these landscapes that are designed. They're very simple to take care of, and in the wintertime I get that evergreen border, and you really can't see the perennials and some of the deciduous shrubs that I use in the back. Knowing your design aesthetic is going to be very simple for you because you're just going to get on Google, you're going to go to Google Images, you're going to start looking at garden styles, landscape design styles, things to that nature, and then you're just going to be able to look through and you're going to be able to see the names of some of these, oh, I really like that. The name is, it's a French cottage style, or it's English cottage. Those two are very similar. It's country elegance, which is kind of like the Bass Pro style. If anybody has been to a Bass Pro in your neck of the woods, that's kind of what they do, is that country elegant style. Or a formal English where you have just kind of rolling hedges that have stuff planted in between. It's up to you. If you like Zen gardens, if you want a full Japanese garden, then now you've got something to work with. Now you've got your flower bed built. You know your design aesthetic. Do some research and figure out what really inspires you to stay in your landscape, to stay in your gardening. If it's not important to you at all, go to your local garden center, take a couple pictures, tell them, what should I do here? And I don't want to do any maintenance. I really don't like plants. I just think my house looks blah. Like I said, your local garden center will help you with that. Now I'm not saying go to Lowe's or Home Depot. They're not going to be able to help you with that. You got to go to an actual garden center with some plant people in it, plant professionals that can help you out, knock it out that way. But if you really want something that's going to keep you in the garden and keep you enthralled and keep you excited, you've got to understand what your design aesthetic is, what makes you excited to go out there in 95-degree weather and hand water one of your hot spots. Is probably the most important. It's know your limitation when it comes to maintenance. How long am I going to be able to maintain this landscape? How long am I going to be able to trim? So mitigating the amount of maintenance that you're planning on doing. Now, I am a different type of I love the maintenance side. right? So I like to go out and hand water my plants, even though last year kind of converted to drip irrigation just because it was such a hot year. We didn't have any rain for 4 months. It was very difficult. It was an extreme drought condition here in the Ozarks. So for me, I felt like I lost a little something, you know, just plug the hose up and flip it on, let it run for 3 hours. But I'm a little different when it comes to maintenance because I enjoy going on the individual growth journey with each one of those plants. You know, my son and I will walk around and look at each one of the plants, and now he's 6, and now he says, oh, this little guy's doing really good. He refers to them as little guys because that's what I refer to him as. So that's this part of the landscape that I want to give up, right? So the bigger the landscape, it's not that big of a... I do mitigate the amount of maintenance that I have in my landscape so I can have bigger landscaping because I plant stuff where it goes. I don't have to do extra work because something is going to outgrow the space unless I go out there every month and a half and trim it. So that's one step to help you in this process. But the thing that scares me the most is that when people get big projects and their eyes are a lot bigger than their rotator cuff, if that makes sense. The trimming that you're going to have to be doing will wear them shoulders out. You're not going to take on other things that you're passionate about, right? You're not going to take on bonsai. You're not going to take on air layering. You're not going to take on the propagation or another flower bed, or you're not going to grow vegetables, you know, because this landscape is just wearing you out. Know your maintenance limitations. And it's okay to say, look, I'm getting older. I don't want to be out there in 95, 105 degree weather, but I know people who that is a form of therapy for them. Going in, weeding their flower beds. They do it for 30 minutes every day before they leave for work, and it just calms them and it zens them out. And if that's you, fantastic, I commend you. So step number 4 is know your budget. I want to be very, very clear that you understand that plants are expensive, all right? But if you do your landscaping in phases, and again, this is making your flower beds, and I condone this 100%. Make your flower beds, tear out your turf, do your flat rock, do all of that jazz, and just mulch them. Put 4 or 5 inches of mulch on top. You know, just go to your local garden center and get the cheapest mulch they have and just mulch it, knowing very well that you are not going to plant there for the next 2 years. That's phase 3. Phase 1 is the front yard. Phase 2 is this area. Phase 3 is this area. You can make phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 and just mulch them. Put some pre-emergent on them every 3 months so you're not getting any weeds. You know, hit it up with a distilled vinegar or something like that to kill the Bermuda grass if you live in that part of the country where it creeps into your flower beds. But you can do all that. Maybe that's phase 1. Maybe phase 1 is building all your flower beds. Phase 2 is now we're going to do the front yard. We're going to fill the front yard up with perennials. Perennials are relatively inexpensive, and they're pretty fire and forget maintenance-wise too. So you could trick out your entire yard and all your flower beds with perennials because they're pretty cheap. Not to mention the fact that, you know, 3 to 4 years later, you're separating those perennials and you're dividing them, and now you're getting free plants out of it. And you can use those in other areas, your other phases. Step number 4 being know your budget is really saying plants are expensive. Get the beneficial bacteria, get the beneficial fungus, do the 2-year fertilizer tablets and the root stimulator, right? And as you build your repertoire of plants, eventually you don't have to pay for plants anymore because you've got all those perennials are just spreading like wildfire because you're doing a great job of taking care of them. So keep that in mind. Know your budget. The last thing you want to do, go to the garden center, spend way too much money, and then you're never allowed to go back to the garden center because your significant other, you know, doesn't get that upper receiver they want or whatever it is your significant other spends their money on. Know your budget. Plants are expensive. Not everybody is a YouTuber that has a mansion that gets free plants given to them. Not everybody is like that. The vast majority of us have to go out, work really hard, and maybe spend 4 hours of our paycheck on a Japanese maple of that sort. So just remember, you can do things in phases, but having a plan is going to enable you to do that. Oh, number 5, know how much sun you're going to have. Now, these all have evolved out of conversations that I have year after year after year in a retail environment. Now, I'm the contract support manager at Carson's, the nursery where I work at. My contractors typically know what's going on, right? But I also really, really love helping people that don't really know a whole lot about plants. And one of the things that is going to be very important to know is how much sun you're getting, because that most intense light is between 10 and 3. So it's going to be really important when we do our plant selections for what kind of plants we're going to use to what time of day we're going to get the sunlight. Knowing the amount of sun is going to be super important, because that is what we can decide if we can achieve that design aesthetic that you like. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks a bunch for bearing with me, and I hope this is helpful to you. Follow those 5 tips. I think you're going to get a lot more out of the experience. I think you're going to be a lot more efficient when you go. I think you're going to feel a lot more self-sufficient. You're going to feel empowered to take on more landscaping projects, or just really dial in the landscape you've got. If you like this content, guys, I'm going to keep it coming. If you like, or if you subscribe, or if you hit the bell, I'm going to do this regardless if you do any of that stuff. But it does help out the channel. It does help other people can see the content, and maybe we can help more people together. The channel is going to be full of this stuff, and the more of a community we can build, then the more questions we're going to have in the comments, and the more that we can respond. So thank you very much for letting me into your house to talk about plants.